The preliminary injunction hearing is over. How did the judge rule? Welcome back to the Big Mountain. I'm going alone here, just JY. I am without Steve this evening, but we had some breaking news that we just had to put out there on video. I have been communicating with Steve, and we want to bring you guys an update on the preliminary injunction hearing regarding OSU and WSU versus the Pac-12 and the commissioner. Obviously, the other treasonous 10 have intervened here. I listened to it, a lot of really interesting stuff. Steve and I are going to do a breakdown video in the coming days. We want to be able to look over that a few times and really give our strong opinions on how we feel this is going to go. But I wanted to do a brief episode here this evening that the judge did rule. And how did he rule? In favor of the Pac-12, Oregon State and Washington State. Get the ruling for this preliminary injunction. Couple things I just want to point out here. I'm not going to get into anything that the attorneys stipulated or said. I do want to mention a few things that the judge said early on in this. The first thing that he mentioned, there would be no testimony, to which there was no testimony. It was purely just the lawyers for these different schools in the Pac-12 bringing the case before the judge. I thought it was very interesting in his early comments. He had mentioned that he was hopeful that the mediation that was going on between these parties would be beneficial and he wouldn't have to see them back in court here today. But alas, of course, they didn't come to any sort of a mediation or settlement agreement, and they were back in court. He did ask all of them if they had a little bit more time. Do they think that mediation could be fruitful, that there could be a settlement before this sort of hearing? They all did answer that question. I'll get to that here in a moment. And he said from the very get-go that he understands this will likely be going to the Washington Supreme Court and possibly the United States Supreme Court. When he said that, I pretty much knew where he was going to end up, and it is where he ended up, going in favor of Oregon State and Washington State and allowing this preliminary injunction. There was a lot of good information that was brought by the University of Washington attorney, and he was really speaking for the treasonous 10. Some really interesting things that he said. There really wasn't a lot of new information from McMichael, the OSU-WSU attorney, and Lambert, the Pac-12 attorney. We've heard a lot of that before. We heard most of it in the original hearing that we had, so not a lot of new stuff there. But when the judge, really said, I'm sure this is going to be going before the Washington Supreme Court and possibly the D.C. Supreme Court, that was pretty telling to me that he was likely going to rule for OSU and WSU, which is what he did. I'm sure there will be an appeal to this. 99.9999% sure that they're going to appeal this decision to the Washington Supreme Court. A little bit more of a neutral stance. Obviously, this was in Whitman County, the back door to Washington State. Not saying Judge Libey here was partial, but certainly that's his town, that's his university, if you will, in that area. So that's where that's at. So as I said, Steve and I are going to do another episode on this where we really break down the hearing here in the next couple days. So make sure you tune back for that. Another piece I wanted to bring out here in this update, something that we had not talked about here on the Big Mountain before, and that was the scheduling alliances. And we talked about an alliance that was proposed to the Mountain West, and that it was going around the Mountain West presidents. This was several weeks ago. Something that I had seen today that I had not seen before was that the same sort of structure, or some sort of a scheduling alliance, was actually pitched to the Sun Belt Conference for Oregon State and Washington State. According to reporting, it didn't take them long to deliberate, this being the Sun Belt Conference, and say, we're not interested. The travel just too far, just not interested in something that they would want to do. And right now, the reporting is that the Mountain West wants a longer-term commitment with some sort of financial incentives. I think they have every right to ask for that. I think if there's going to be some sort of scheduling alliance, there should be some sort of a long-term commitment, at least 2 years, if not more, as well as some sort of financial incentives. And as we heard before, the AAC is really not interested in moving westward at all. I don't know if there was a pitch done for them for a scheduling alliance or not. but history has shown that they're really not interested in that. So I think the time is absolutely ticking on the Cougs and the Beavs, certainly for next year. I think the Mountain West is really their only hope to get a full schedule here, and I would like to see that happen. I would like to see some sort of a commitment on both sides, even if it's for these 2 years. Let's make that work. Let's test the waters, so to speak, and see if that can be the new, again, whether, as we talked before, whether they join the Mountain West or we have a new PAC West, which I know we were told that there's a D2 conference that is the PAC West, so we can't be that. But hey, the Big Mountain or the Big Mountain West, maybe we can do. So anywho, hey, I wanted to get this out here real quick because this is breaking news. Steve and I have been on this for the past 2.5 months. We have been waiting for this day. I don't think there's too much of a surprise from anybody that this is the way the judge ruled. I think the games have only just begun. Certainly an appeal is going to happen, and a lot more messy times ahead. So, hey, with that, like us, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Give us some comments on your thoughts on what's going on right now. From what Steve told me, I believe the judge allowed until Friday for them to allow this to be open until Friday for an appeal to possibly happen. I see that 99% happening. So anyway, give us a like and a subscribe. Give us some comments. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.